Hi there, my name is Dr. Marissa May. In this video, we're going to be looking at what is a compound inequality and how do I solve them. So, a compound inequality consists of two individual inequalities that are joined by either the word and or the word or. Now, we're going to look at examples of both types and how do we solve them? How do we graph the solution? So, let's take a look. We'll look first at the and inequalities. So when we have an and inequality, something like x is less than 7 and x is greater than 3, the first thing we want to do is to graph x is less than 7. So we'll put some numbers on this number line. I'll just put 0 here. I'm just putting a few of them. Okay, so let's go to 7. And because there's no equal to under the inequality, we're going to put an open circle. And I'm just going to draw an arrow for the part that would be to the left because these are the numbers where x is less than 7. All right, let's look at number 2 then. We graph x is greater than 3. So again, we're going to go to 3. 1, 2, 3. We're going to put an open circle since there's no equal to underneath that greater than. And we want greater than, so we would shade to the right. Now look at question number 3. Where do these overlap? This is the solution. So I'm going to shade in between the two of them on the number line because that's where the shadings or these two lines that I have drawn above and below the number line, that's where they overlap. Now, can we write this as one inequality? Yeah, we can. Let me show you how. We would start the shading at 3. Okay. Then the shading is between the two. So I'm going to put an X between, and the shading ends at 7. Now, all we have to add are the inequalities, and we will use less thans. Now, take a look. When we look at this half of the inequality, I want you to see that the inequality, the alligator mouth, maybe you've learned it that way, the alligator mouth is opening to the X. Look at our inequality. The alligator mouth is opening to the X. So I know this is right. Okay. Now, if I look at the second inequality, I see the alligator mouth is opening to the 7, right? And so we can look at this inequality and we see that it is where the alligator mouth is opening to the 7. So I know this is my solution with my and inequality. I can write that as one inequality. All right. Let's take another example. For the second type of inequalities, the or inequalities, let's take a look at what those look like. So we're going to graph x is greater than 4 or x is less than -1. So we'll start with number 1 here by graphing x is less than 4. So again, I'm going to put some numbers on our number line. I'm going to make 0 here. Okay, so we're going to go to 4. So remember, we're graphing x is less than 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, and we are graphing, sorry about that. We are graphing x is greater than 4. Check our inequality there. X is greater than 4. Okay, so I've put an open circle at 4 because there's no equal to under the inequality. And I want greater than, so I would shade this direction. Okay. Then let's do number 2. I want to do, and notice where you should be doing, that's a typo, x is less than -1. Okay, so we're going to go to -1, which would be here. We'll put an open circle there. And we want less than, so that would be this direction. Now, do the lines overlap? And the answer is no. But in this type, with an or inequality, you don't need them to overlap. So you're just going to shade on the number line anywhere that those lines have been drawn. So this would be written as x is less than -1 or x is greater than 4. See, with an or inequality, you can't write them together like we did the and inequality. But I also want you to look at the way the graph ends up going, right? Two different directions. Whereas with the and, remember the lines went in the same towards each other and we shaded between, that's more typical of an and inequality. All right, let's look at solving some. All right, let's get a little practice here on solving both types. Remember, the ors tend to go out away from each other, and the ands, we're looking for the overlap. So if we look at number 1, we want x is greater than 7 or x is less than 0. So let's put some numbers on the number line. Okay, we'll go to 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We'll draw an open circle, and we want greater than, so we're going to go this direction. Okay, then we'll do x is less than 0. So again, we're going to put an open circle at 0, and we want less than, so we're going to go this direction. Now, it's an or a type 2 inequality, so we're not looking for overlap, so we're just going to shade on that number line. All right, let's look at number 2 then. X is greater than or equal to 0, and x is less than 9. So I'm going to put some numbers on the numbers on the number line. Okay, x is greater than or equal to 0, so we're putting a closed circle at 0. We want greater than, so we're going to be drawing a line this way. X is less than 9, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Put an open circle there, and we want less than, so that's this direction. Now remember, with our ands or our type 1 inequalities, we're looking for the overlap. So you're looking where these two lines overlap, and I see that that's in the middle. All right, now here's a great tip for you. You might want to press pause. Try these last two inequalities on your own, and then come back, press play, and see how I do them and see if you get them right. All right, so for the number 3 here, we've got -2. Oh, they wrote it together. Okay, so I'm putting some numbers on my number line. So at -2, I see that little equal to underneath the inequality. So I'm going to put an open circle. And then at 6, I'm going to put open circle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Put open circle. And I love, because these are already written together, I'm just going to shade between them, because notice that X is between them. That lets me know that I shade between them. Remember, this is an and inequality. Even though they didn't write the word and, we know this because only and inequalities can be written together. Okay? All right, one more, friends. Let's look at x is less than -12 or x is greater than or equal to -4. I got lots of negatives going on here. All right. So at x is less than -12, I'm going to put an open circle, and I want less than. So I'm going to be shading to, we'll draw my line to the left. Then at -4, 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm going to put a closed circle, and we want x is greater than. So I'm going to go to the right. Now remember, with ors, we're not looking for the overlap. So I'm just going to shade everything underneath these lines I've drawn. And remember, with ors or type 2 inequalities, you cannot rewrite them as one inequality. They have to be written separately using the word or. All right, friends, you did great on those practice ones. Keep remembering. Ands, we shade overlap. Ors tend to go out in little branches, I like to think of them, in opposite directions. Let's look at a few more. All right, for these and inequalities or type 1 inequalities, we are going to solve them. So we're going to first draw a line on each inequality sign like you would an equal sign. Then we're going to use the same steps you normally would do to get the variable alone, but you must do the action in 3 separate columns. Let me show you what I mean here in number 3. Remember, when we're solving equations, that we draw this like imaginary line at the equal sign? Well, we're going to do that at the inequality. We just need to do it at both inequalities. All right, now take a look in the middle. You see m minus 4. So you're asking yourself, what's happening to the variable? It's being subtracted by 4. So we have to do the opposite of subtracting 4, which is to add 4. Now watch where I do that, though. I have to do it in 3 columns. I've done it in the middle column. I have to do it in the left column, and I have to do it in the right column. All 3 columns need that plus 4. let's take a look at what happens. Negative 3 plus 4 gives me positive 1. Don't forget my inequality, less than or equal to. In the middle, I see the minus 4 plus 4. Those cancel out, but don't forget the m that's still there. Then I have a less than, and then 1 plus 4 gives me 5. Now, this is just like the inequalities we had practiced with, where we can graph them on our number line. So let's draw some numbers. Okay, so at 1, we're going to put an closed circle, because I see that little equal to underneath the inequality. And then at 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, I'm going to put an open circle. Okay, and remember, the m is between them, so I know I shade between. And that's it, my friends. You just solved it and graphed it. Okay, let's do one more just to make sure we got all the little details down. I'm going to put my imaginary lines here. Look in the middle. We need to figure out what would we do first. Well, I see that divided by 2 part, so I'm going to multiply by 2. Remember, I have to do that in 3 columns. Okay, so on the left, 2 times 1 is 2. In the middle, multiplying by 2, divide by 2 cancel. So that gives me 2x minus 7. And then on the far right, I've got 5 times 2, which is 10. Okay, now, again, in the middle, next thing we need to do is to add 7. So I'm going to add 7 here. I'm going to add 7 here. I'm going to add 7 here. 3 columns. Every time I do something to get the variable by itself, I got to do it in 3 places. So that's 9 is less than minus 7 plus 7 cancel, gives me 2x. It's less than, and then 10 plus 7 gives me 17. Okay, last step, I've got to get rid of that multiply by 2. So I'm going to divide by 2. No, these are not going to come out to be nice numbers. That's okay. We'll do decimals. 4.5 is less than, now multiply by 2, divide by 2, cancel, giving me x less than 8.5. Okay. Now let's go to our number line. We'll put 0 there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. Oops. I don't know what's up with my picture. We'll just make this work here. So 4.5, we're going to put an open circle. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then go to 0.5. We'll put an open circle there. And then 8.5, 5, 6, 7, 8 and a half. We'll put an open circle there. And we're going to shade in between. Okay, so again, it works out just like our inequalities, our and inequalities, where we're shading in between them. Okay, now let's take a look at solving our or inequalities. All right, for or inequalities, you're solving 2 separate inequalities. So if we look at number 1, we're going to solve 3x plus 2 is less than negative 7. So I just have to draw one imaginary line there. And we're going to do the opposite of the adding 2. So we're going to subtract 2 from both sides of that imaginary line. That leaves me with 3x is less than negative 9. Then we're dividing by 3 so that x is less than negative 3. Okay, so I am solving these separate from each other. So I'm going to go do the same thing over here. I'm asking myself what's happening to that variable. It's being multiplied by negative 4, being added by 5. So I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides. Now, of course, the plus 5 minus 5 cancel, and that leaves me with negative 4x is less than negative 4. Now, I need to divide by negative 4, and I'm hoping you're remembering the flip rule, which says if I multiply or divide by a negative number, I must flip that inequality, and that is positive 1. Negative 4 divided by negative 4 is positive 1. So now let's graph these. X is less than negative 3, or x is greater than positive 1. Put 0 right there. Okay, so x is less than negative 3. We're going to go to negative 3, put an open circle, and we want less than, so I'm going to draw my line to the left. Then I'm going to go to 1, put an open circle again because x is greater than positive 1, and I'm going to draw my line to the right. Now remember, with or type 2 inequalities, we're not looking for overlap, so I'm going to shade everything underneath these lines here. All right. Now, this would be a great time for you to press the pause button. Try this number 2 here and see how you do. Then you can press play and see how I do it and see if we get the same answer. All right, I'm going to draw my imaginary line here. I'm going to subtract my 7 from both sides, and that gives me 5y is less than or equal to negative 10. So now I'm ready to divide by 5 on both sides, and I get y is less than or equal to negative 2. Okay, remember, separate inequalities. So I'm going to come over here to the second inequality. I need to get rid of that minus 2, so I'm going to do the opposite, which is to add 2 to both sides. The whole reason we do that is because minus 2 plus 2 cancel, giving me 3y is greater than or equal to 15. And then we divide by 3 on both sides, and we get y is greater than or equal to 5. Okay. Now we're ready to graph those. We'll put some numbers on number line. Okay, so at y is less than or equal to negative 2, I'm going to go to negative 2, drawing a closed circle because of the equal to underneath that inequality. And I need less than, so I'm drawing my line to the left. Now I'm coming over here to 5, putting a closed circle again because of that equal to, and I need greater than, so I'm going to draw it into the right. Now, again, I don't need the overlap because this is an or inequality, so I'm going to shade everything underneath those 2 lines. And there's my graph. All right, my friends. So here's the summary of what we did. We had 2 types of inequalities where we have an and, that's where we're looking for the overlap when we graph. Those are the types of inequalities that can be written together as one inequality. And then we also have the or, and those are where you're solving 2 completely separate inequalities. And you're going to be looking for the graphs to do these branches where they're going in opposite directions. Friends, we did a lot of examples here. I hope you got some really good notes to help you as you're working through these types of problems. All right, have a great week. Bye for now.